like a
OK。
that's fine。那个我来讲国语哈，因为大家讲国语比较多。那个 OK 下午好，然后那个good afternoon everyone。So 然后我们Avenue U 的话和86街的话呢，2501和86街，然后的话一直都在跟进这个 BSA 这个case。然后其实 BSA 这个 case 的话，真的是花了很多时间和精力。然后在这个周末的时候，晚上的时候，雅敏Steven Chang 他们就是Steven Chang 然后他们都有花很多时间和精力在帮助我们这个 BSA 这个 case。所以说的话，今天的话我们有一些新的一些 update， 然后想给社区一个就是更新，然后也告诉社区的话，我们在这个反游民手的这个问题上的话呢，我们还在做一些什么？因为有时候的话，可能那个地方，比如说要动工啦，然后那边的话又拆啦，然后大家的话心急如焚，然后的话呢又爱莫难助，然后我知道很多老人家，然后很多社区的商家都很就是都很焦虑，然后也很担心，因为昨天的话我在18大道的话，我就遇到了一个老外，然后他当时的话呢，就给我看一下的话，他是在他自己的家的走廊的话呢，然后的话3分钟之前的话呢，她是一个很漂亮的一个 lady， 然后3分钟之后的话呢，她的脸的话就是这样子的了，那个人的话就是这样的一个人。你知道吗？所以的话，对我们来说的话呢，社区安全很重要。所以这次的话呢，我们U 大道的话有一些新的更新，所以的话，那我可以先请那个Eddi，然后讲解一下这边的，然后等一下的话，马大哥的话，然后讲解一下86街的一个进展，然后那我们讲国语 ，OK，Thank you。
各位媒体朋友、社区成员，大家好。我是来自 MUU 2134Coyle Street 社区的代表之一 Eddi。我旁边的是另外一个代表 Andy。同时呢，我也是这个2134社区2个 BSA case 的申请人。今天我要跟大家汇报一些重要的进展。同时也要代表我们社区对Steven Chang 还有坐在我旁边的刘雅明小姐的衷心的感谢。首先呢，我就讲一讲关于这个 Coyle Street 这个项目刚刚是过去的那一周呢，我们看到 BSA 在我们排期的时候呢。他们就把我们这个 BSA 的 case， 我们的 BSA case， 我说是2134这一边，最早那个 case 是2025年54号 A 这个 case， 还有后来提交的就是这个2026年09A 这2个 case， 中间还加了86街这边的。2025 55A 这个 case， 还有另外一个 case， 包括还有法拉盛悠兰花园那个 case， 都在被 BSA 跳过了。他们排期把我们的 case 全部跳过了，就直接排到2026 12A， 然后我们就很意外，然后我们就请刘雅明小姐。帮我们写了一封信给这个 BSA， 然后他们昨天就回了我们2134这个 case 将会排到8月10号2026年。这意味着这个涉及这个审批程序、拆除许可，还有这个雨水工程问题。的所有这些问题，终于会进入一个正式的、公开的审理的阶段。 我代表我们2134说一说我们2134那边有什么问题。它最大的一个问题呢，就是它在一个土地把一个土地上3个 building， 它做一个分割叫做 subdivision 的时候，这个 subdivision 的 drop 还没有 sign off 的情况下，就批了一个新的 building 的 permit， 这是不合规的。然后他在申请这个 permit 的时候，也存在大量这个产权信息的不准确的情况。然后就是这个叫做 stormwater permit， 在没有申请的情况下就申请了这个 subdivision 这个 drop 这个 permit。这些东西全部都关系到这个公共安全，还有这个环境保护，还有这个政府的监管 ，DOB 的监管是否严格、是否一致、是否透明。作为我们社区，我们并不是反对这些合法的开发，我们反对的是所有这些开发必须遵从这个合法合规，还有公平、负责任的基础上来进行。然后呢，所以我们现在这个 case 就排到了8月10号，所以就有了今天这个记者发布会。因为我知道我们特别是我们2134这个街坊很多看到他们那个 building 被拆除了之后，就觉得很灰心。因为他们觉得他们都开始动工了，开始拆除了，他们会觉得非常的无奈，觉得我们没有办法再阻止他们了。其实不是，其实我们是一边阻止他们拆除，然后我们其实在开始的时候，我们不跟大家说，我们是希望他们把那2座 building 都拆除了，因为当他们把那2座 building 拆除了的时候，他们这个 subdivision 的 drop 就几乎是没有办法做这个 sign off， 然后可能会变成一个死案。所以在这个 BSA 的这个申请上，我代表我们社区特别的感谢Stephen Chang 的 office 的帮忙，还有刘雅明小姐的帮忙，因为他们真是花了很多的时间在研究这些 case， 在 prepare 这些 document， 去找出怎么去做这个 BSA case。特别是刘雅明小姐，做了很多晚的通宵，把这些 document 做出来。然后我只是一个中间人，把它寄出去，就是所以我也鼓励所有这些社区的成员不要灰心，就我们是看到希望的，包括是86街这边的居民不要灰心，因为我们这个 BSA 的 case 是可以给社区这个反游民所带来很大的希望。谢谢，就这样。
Hi, good testing. Good morning, everyone. I want to thank everyone for being here today, and I want to thank the members of the media for coming here and listening to us in regards to this upcoming BSA challenge scheduled for August 10th of this year. The hearing is coming up. So I want to thank my Deputy Chief of Staff, Yamin, as well as our neighbors Eddi and Andy, as well as Dr. Henry. Where is he? Okay. So this particular BSA challenge, Board of Standards and Appeals, is in regards to Coyle Street, 2134 Coyle Street, that homeless shelter over there. Now, as we know, there's a lot of homeless shelters going up around New York City, we know that. And that was started basically by the Adams administration, where he is hell-bent on destroying good neighborhoods. I just don't get it. So, first I want to make clear that the neighbors at Coyle Street, they're currently, my office is working with against 2, and you can say 3 homeless shelters, one in a new one popping up in Staten Island. I want to thank the neighbors for, when we talk about work, we're talking about hundreds and hundreds of hours of research and thousands of hours of meetings and protesting and gatherings and press conferences. And I'm just a small part of the big picture. I have to give credit to our neighbors, as well as my Deputy Chief of Staff, Yamin, as well as my Chief of Operations, Raymond Morales. And I'm not one to take all the credit, but rest assured that it was my office that wrote this Board of Standard and Appeals challenge along with the neighbors over at Coyle Street. Now, another one of these Board of Standards and Appeals challenges exists for 86th Street. A couple of days we contacted the BSA and request further information whether they have scheduled a hearing date. So they haven't gotten back to us on that one yet. And when it gets closer to a hearing date in regards to that, we'll have more press conferences in regards to that one. So now, with that said, we, over the last year or two, have come to learn a lot about the Department of Buildings and their operational procedure. So I'm just going to highlight a few things over here on why. So this is my message to the BSA on why this building permit over at Coyle Street should be revoked and nullified. So there's a certain sequence of events and requirements that must happen prior to the issuance of a building permit or a new building application. And in this case, they violated their own procedures, the Department of Buildings, in erroneously and falsely issuing these building permits prior to certain things being done. So let's talk about one thing. Okay, so how did they go against their own policies? Well, one thing is the property ownership certification. In 2021, a Department of Building Service notice that was effective in August of 2021 states that a new building application or alteration must be provided with a certification. The owner of the property is defined as the owner of record, reflected in the records of the New York City Department of Finance, where such owner is an entity, and only the entity is to be identified, and not its individual shareholders. Now, with that said, what was submitted as part of that application as certificate of ownership is the applicant David Schwartz. He submitted a certification dated January of 2024, identifying Coyle Street Owner LLC as the owner. However, the Department of Finance records in the ACRIS system establishes that that entity did not acquire the title until May of 2024. So now, again, the application was submitted with him as the owner in January, but he didn't actually acquire the property until May. So why was this building permit issued? I know why, because look who was the mayor, right? He knew his days were numbered in City Hall, so he wanted to fast track certain private contracts that he had. They wanted to sidestep Department of Buildings regulations, and it's just not the right way to do things. So they violated its own policies, the Department of Buildings, based on the fact of some insider deal. I don't know what it is. Yeah, I'm not accusing anybody of anything, but what is clear is that Department of Building operational procedures were violated. So now, let's talk about the street tree checklist. Right? They're supposed to, the application is independent, non-compliant, because the required street tree checklist, Form ST1, was not executed by the property owner at the time of issuance of the building permit. And now, if you think that's minor, okay, let's go on to the next one. How about the improper deferment of the stormwater construction permit, what do we do about the stormwater? I worked in the 6-1 precinct, not far from that location. And I remember that precinct, every time it rained, the basement was flooded out. They have to have a special turbo pump room. It's an entire room at the lowest point of the station house dedicated to the stormwater, where that room got flooded and these turbo pumps pumped them back into the sewer in hopes of getting rid of that stormwater. And every time it rained, it stunk to high heaven because all the sewage would back up into that particular room in the 6-1 precinct. And this is the same thing. This is no different than that. Now, according to the Department of Buildings waiver and deferral document request list, right? This is exempt from that. You cannot waive a stormwater construction permit, meaning they're not supposed to say, oh, okay, we'll waive this requirement for now, we'll go ahead and issue the permit, you just bring us back that certificate at a later date. No, there's no waiver for this, okay, in accordance with DOB operational procedures. So, and that, we know for a fact that that permit was waived. Now, Eddie, am I correct? Andy, am I correct to say that they still don't have this permit?
They have it for the new building.
But not the other two. Okay, so all right, so now let's go on to talk about the other two, right? They're not supposed to, wait, subdivision, right?
Yeah, subdivision.
Okay, did I skip subdivision? Yes, I did. So, let's go back to subdivision. Okay, so the DOB subdivision improved job number 321601619, together with the subdivision plan, confirms that the existing buildings on lot 10 and lot 11 are to remain accordingly. Now, the DOB required to withhold the approval of the new building application pending receipt of the subdivision sign-off. They were supposed to subdivide this land prior to the DOB approving the sign-off, and they didn't wait for that. So now, I don't know if I explained that clearly. It is not only technical, but it is clearly a substantive regulation that it failed to meet the Department of Regulations. So let me read that carefully. Now, so the DOB subdivision, right, together with the subdivision plan confirms that the existing buildings on lot 10 and lot 11 are to remain. Am I correct to say that?
Yeah.
Okay.
They need to remain, yeah.
Accordingly, the DOB is required to withhold approval of the new building application pending the receipt of subdivision sign-off, which they didn't have at the time. They did not subdivide the land prior to the approval. So, again, there's just so many things wrong with this, the issuance of this building permit. You can call it erroneous. You can call it falsely accusing it. You can falsely issuing the permit. You can call it sidestepping. You can call it taking a shortcut. Whatever it is, I am calling for the Board of Standard and Appeals to consider what our neighbors and my office have raised as questions and evidence in issuing of this permit falsely. So I would like I implore the BSA to revoke the DOB's issuance of the new building work permit number B009-15426-11-GC. And two, reverse the DOB's approval of the new building application dated April 2nd of 2024. Declare it null and void. Cancel it. It was never supposed to be issued. And four, grant such and other further relief as the board deems just and proper. I need the board to look into this. The board is one of our last stands in justice, and we can't allow the government's the mayor's office or city hall or the DOB or anyone, any special interest groups, any officials try to sidestep the regulations that the DOB wrote themselves. They violated their own rules. That's the problem. So there's a Chinese term, it's called Mao Tun, right? Mao Tun. You know, made a spear, and then you make a shield, and you tell people, my spear is so good that it'll penetrate any shield. And then you made the same shield, and you said, my shield is so good that no spear can penetrate it. It just doesn't make sense. So the DOB is not making sense in this case, and I implore the BSA to look into this and revoke those permits and let these people start all over again and let them do things the right way, without deception, without corruption. So I want everybody to know that my office is dedicated to helping our neighbors, especially that of the community of Bensonhurst, as well as Sheepshead Bay, because you know why? Because they reached out to me for help at a time that they didn't have a state senator, and no other city officials were stepping up. And I also want to remind everybody that it was in fact my office that wrote the BSA along with the neighbors for 86th Street's homeless shelter at 2501 and as well as 2134 Coyle Street, and we will continue to help the neighbors when it comes to this. And me, personally, I was the only one that wrote legislation to ban these homeless shelters within 500 feet of a subway. And my legislation was supported by the Assembly, carried over by Assemblyman Lester Chang. Now, for a piece of legislation to go into effect as the law, the identical legislation must be submitted to the Assembly as well as the Senate. So my bill is in both houses, and without my bill being in both houses, it will never have a chance of becoming law. So other legislators have since jumped on the bandwagon, so to speak, and says, look, I wrote my own legislation, but I guarantee you that piece of legislation is only in the Assembly. It is not in the New York State Senate, and there's no senators have supported that piece of legislation. I guess I'm gonna have to do it down the road. I guess I'm gonna have to pick up that piece of legislation and also introduce it to the Senate. So with that said, I wanna hand the mic over to Assemblyman Lester Chang's office, who's also been tireless in helping our neighbors of 86th Street and Coyle Street, as well as Queens. Oh, talk about Queens, I want to mention, right? The same scenario existed for the newly built Magnolia Gardens men's shelter over in Queens. And right now, the building is already complete, and again, the Board of Standard and Appeals ruled that that building permit was also erroneously issued, and a CFO has not been issued for that building. It might have to be demolished. I understand there's litigation going on, so we'll find out what happens over there. I want to thank the BSA, by the way, for carrying out justice and carrying out proper procedure. So now I'm going to hand the mic over to Ken Chu of Lester Chang's office.
Thank you, Senator. I don't need to,
Okay.
because I think that I cannot say it better than the Senator. First, we want to thank the Senator for taking the lead, especially Yamin for pouring in hours and hours of going to file the BSA. I want to thank our neighbors at Coyle Street and 86th Street. Our government is most effective when its citizens are holding them accountable. These work as tireless as it is, as tedious as it is, okay, it must be done so they know that we are looking at them. There is a reason why our government is what we call slow, and slow for a reason, because it has processes, and that process matters for the safety of the residents, the safety of the owners, okay, as well as whoever it's going to serve. We have to ensure that that process, okay, is being done correctly. As the Senator said, okay, you can't just skip or cut corners. And we thank the BSA. The Senator also mentioned Magnolia Garden, which a few years ago when it was proposed, we fought tooth and nail and we failed. But not doing the stormwater, that is not a simple procedure where you can just undo, because the water, it has to be processed somewhere. And so these are major issues, as well as what's happening at Coyle Street. Frankly, we question who are the inspectors that are approving these permits. Fortunately, the BSA caught up to it, and the Senator and the residents of Coyle Street and Flushing and 86th Street are monitoring it. Again, we can't say this enough. We thank all of you. Even though the 86th Street Center is just outside of our office, outside our district, it does affect our district. The Assembly member's policy on homeless is he does not want any homeless shelter that the community does not want. He preferred vouchers for a longer term way of assisting those that are in need, building more shelters and more shelters, whether it's shelters or housing them at hotels, again, is not the humane way of helping these individuals. Again, thank you. Thank you to all leaders. Thank you to the media.
I would like to invite my Deputy Chief of Operations for my office, Yamin to speak.
Hello, yes, my name is Yamin. I'm the
Speak Chinese.
讲国语。
Yeah, yeah.
大家好，大家好，我是我叫亚明，我是城水里州参议员办公室的副幕僚长我要很感谢86街的居民、Coyle Street 居民还有陈参议员他对我的信任。其实我没有做过 BSA， 我也不是律师，他们还有我要感谢还有 Henry Zhang， 他找到很多的证据资料，然后拿进我们办公室，然后我们就研究怎样去做，然后很高兴可以做得出来，然后我们做2个 case 给Coyle Street， 还有2个 case， 其实86街有3个 case， 我们办公室做了2个 case， 有另外1个 case 呢是蓝哥在那边做的，要不要？蓝哥
没有，我自己帮小小的，没有什么。
对，就是有另外86街我们办公室做了只有86街有3个 case， 我们办公室做了2个 case， 但是其中有1个 case 呢是他没有接送，我们没有 follow up， 可能因为那个另外一个 case 跟Magnolia Garden 是有一点差不多共通点，如果Magnolia Garden不行的话，那个 case 也是一样的。如果他行了，就自动的就可以，就不用做。所以我们办公室的86街做了另外一次那个是关于中领的，还有另外一个是南哥的，就是很简单。我是感谢所有86街的居民，所有 Coyle Street 的居民，还有陈参议员对我的信任对我们就是可以很高兴可以做得出来，谢谢大家。
好那个对86街的代表的话，那个
OK， 还要其实我还要感谢 Eddi 我们做了，然后因为写了，然后写好了，然后可能印可能好几个 page， 很多东西要印了很多串，然后去拿去邮局，然后再去寄，其实也是很辛苦的，所以感谢你，感谢你们。
OK， 咁我而家咧就交俾馬生啦。其實講真啦，我係就很信任、很尊重馬生，因為他真的是像86街，當我們一通知社區要請郵民守的時候，真的一剛開始他要守這個86街，然後對一個人守了幾個月，真的是很不容易的。所以其實再加上這個次。86街的话有什么的话，他都担起这个责任的话，其实如果大家的话，应该给一些掌声给我们马大哥。不简单也不容易，真的是，因为我为什么后来我们让Coyle Street他们都参与其中的话，可以让他们知道的话，真的做一件事也要花很多时间，花很多精力。然后的话呢，你还要再去 follow 真的是的话，你不单是有家庭，你还有工作，然后其实的话还要承担社会上面的那些很多责任。其实这个重担的话呢，86街的马哥的话是当之无愧，所以马大哥你來講咯。
一言難盡。不過咧喺呢度咧，之前要講嘅咧。前面嗰位都表達過啦，我而家咧就喺度可以講代表86街又得，代表我個人又得。好多謝陳樂理議員，佢上任以嚟一路所做嘅嘢，對86街嘅幫忙同貢獻。多謝。同埋咧喺我哋最艱難嘅時候。劉亞明對同我哋幫咗我哋 BSA 嘅上訴，做咗好多人睇唔到嘅感受唔到嘅嘢，所以咧好多謝佢，同埋好多謝一路嚟86街嘅班義工，不斷咁堅持到今日， 78人啊！喺呢度，希望你同我講聲俾佢哋聽，好多謝佢哋。
多謝各位今日咁上面過嚟呢度聽我哋講幾句嘢。我可以講呢句嘢，我可以講呢幾句呢幾句嘢。我哋嘅寫字樓同埋鄭永佳嘅寫字樓會繼續同大家奮鬥，同埋繼續呢一個戰爭。呢個戰爭而家仲未曾決定邊個贏嘅，但係我哋會一繼續奮鬥同埋努力去對呢啲對我哋社會冇益嘅嘢。多謝晒大家咁信任我哋嘅寫字樓。
我来讲一下哈，因为当初的话呢，其实我们跟那个我们Coyle Street的学律师3方通话，然后给雅敏给那个 Dr. Harry Zhu， 然后我们通话的时候，然后就讲到的话用 Article 78， 然后去做就是说到政府这些，其实很多时候的话，就是那学律师就说的话，你们要找人，因为他当时在帮我们在881的案件，所以当时的话呢，雅敏说我来做。其实雅敏真的是他很有勇气，真的是为什么有真的是我们真的是不知道应该怎么，这真的是大家很你就觉得因为你想的话，你在给政府在抗衡，然后我们这是一个小小的一个居民。所以的话，这个大山压下来的时候的话，真的很无助。所以很幸运的话，就是我们有共和党的那个 Senator Stephen Chen， 还有那个Lester Chang。当我们那边的话有遇到问题的时候的话，他们只要是华人，然后他们就被伸着手，然后去帮我们。不管当初的话，就包括的话，我们今天的黑手的话，像那个 Candice， 然后当时的话86街发生事情的话，从昆斯坎过来的话，然后帮忙，其实也是因为大家都是社区的一份子，所以说的话呢，今天的话呢，我们也借助的话呢，就是说刚好是这个周日是Father's Day， 然后上个月的话是Mother's Day， 然后紧的话，那我们叫做Parents Appreciate Day， 然后呢，今天的话，我们也代表的话86街还有 Coyle Street 的话呢，带了个奖状过来，然后还有感谢信，然后。然后这个的话，首先的话呢，这雅敏先 ，OK， 我们要给点掌声给雅敏，然后
然之後上一課。
係同埋馬哥。
同埋馬哥企埋過嚟。
安坐馬哥，呢個你企中間。
馬哥嚟，馬哥。
This is for you.
Steve.
Yeah. Oh, that's mine. That's for you.
Yeah, that's